Hello and welcome to the Black Comics Universe presented by Peep Game Comics, exclusively here on The Experience. Please help us out by hitting share and giving us a like and a follow. Then make sure to tune in for our original programming 7 days a week. The Black Comics Universe streams every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on all DSPs. That's Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Also, please follow Black Comics Universe. That's comics with an X on Facebook and Instagram at Black Comics Universe. Tonight, I am joined by Mr. Trill League himself, Anthony Piper. What's up, fam?
Hey, what's going on, man?
It feels good to catch up with you. I think my very first podcast was with you. Decade. It's been a minute, years ago. And I'm really anxious to catch up and see how you've been. I'm gonna give you just a few seconds, just to, for people who don't know who you are and what you mean to the culture and what you mean to comics. I'm gonna let you toot your own horn for a minute and introduce yourself.
Okay, so name Anthony Piper. Most people know me as the creator of Trill League, which is basically a parody of the Justice League. A lot of people compare it to, the Boondocks meets the Justice League. Mm-hmm. I've been working in the industry. Well, I've been working on the independent art scene for about a little over 10 years now. I've worked in the animation industry on a couple of productions. I've worked on Axe Cop, Major Lazer. I've worked in the comic industry, the publication industry for Marvel, and done some work for, who else did I do some work for? Image. Written for X-Men, written on Guardians of the Galaxy, illustrated for them too. I've done a couple of different things. Did a music video for Sir. Worked with a couple of different brands. So man, I've been all over the place artistically. But yeah, my main claim to fame is Trill League.
Yeah. And so for people who don't know, because it's been so long since. I mean, for me, it's still hot. It's still a hot topic for me. I still talk about that book and what you did. But can you walk us through that time when you introduced, at the time, what you were calling Trill Robin and those characters, the impact that you had at that moment when you introduced Trill League?
Yeah. So, I mean, Trill League was kind of a happy accident. Mm-hmm. I was doing some freelance work at the time. I was mostly known for doing album cover work, right?
Okay.
And I really wanted to bring that music influence into my art. And that was always my primary motivation behind getting into the art space. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was doing some remixes on Marvel characters. So I was remixing Storm, remixing Thor, Shadowcat, kind of giving them kind of this urban hip hop vibe. And then I decided to do the DC characters. And that's how I stumbled across Trill Robin, but I did a character sheet. And I had him doing some dances, kind of had him interacting with some other DC characters. And I put them online and I went to sleep. And I went to sleep, just kind of just sharing my work. And then I woke up the morning and this piece had got more shares than I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, okay, I kind of got something. I'm like, let me do another character. So then I remixed Green Lantern and made him a pimp and started adding all this little funny little things that he would do with his power ring. And that thing got crazy shit. So then I was like, this is a thing. So then I just started building into it, start remixing more characters, adding, these different personalities to them. And I think really when it started to come together was outside of the character sheets when I started to put them in, and when I started to create these little small comics, giving them storylines and stuff like that. And that's when it really started to come to life.
Man, so, and it's not, and I know you call it a happy accident, but as I was following it, it felt like there was a formula to it, or there was some rhyme or reason to it, like, being able to, like you not just introduce the characters, but those short stories that the web comics that you were sharing on Instagram and Facebook that really that really took off. Yeah. And it seemed like there was there was definitely a method to your madness. So by the time that you came to your Kickstarter for the actual book, you had so much momentum. How much did you raise in your Kickstarter?
The initial Kickstarter, I
Right.
raised close a little under 21,000.
Yep. And I think it was like in a day or something like that. It was crazy, if I remember
Well, yeah, I
correctly.
hit my goal with under 24 hours, which my initial goal, I believe, was 7,000.
Right.
So that was my
Yes.
goal to print the book, and I hit that under 24 hours.
Yep. And then it seems like your career just took off from there. Do you feel like the things that you've done to get to the point you are now, the success that you have now, do you think it's enough of a formula that you could like share it with somebody, or share it like teach a class on it, or like share this formula that you put out? Is it a solid system that you could share it and like another artist could follow in those footsteps and pull off what you put off?
That's something I've been debating, just
Mm-hmm.
because I've been seeing a lot of my peers moving on to the teaching space,
Mm-hmm.
is teaching what it is that they're expertise in, and I've been going back and forth. I'm not necessarily sure if I can teach, because I just think Cheer League was lightning in a bottle in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the space that it occupied. To me, it's so different from anything it is that's really being done out there, just because it has a humorous spin to it.
Yeah. Yep.
And a lot of people, in terms of when you see really what tends to go viral on social media, it tends to be comedy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of, when you think about, and that's not, and when I say this isn't me trying to, this wasn't exactly the formula that I went into it, going into the mindset that I was like, I'm going to create something comedic.
Right.
But it's just when you see a lot of the people who have come up on social media, it usually is something comedy driven.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily sure if I can take the formula that was successful for me and apply it to other people. Now, however, I can say from a writing aspect, because a lot of doors have opened for me in a writing space, in terms of writing for other properties, moving over into the television writing space as well, that putting your material out there in a comic form and sharing it online can get, looks from people and, in high places.
Okay.
So, but in terms of teaching, man, I've been trying to break that down. I can't figure out how I would teach my success and how that can apply to somebody else's property or ideas.
And I think that's interesting, because maybe you just don't realize how much you were sharing when you first started out. Because I was kind of paying attention. It's sort of like you weren't just I remember you were sharing some of the books that you were teaching yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know, like, did you go to school for art, or were you were you self-taught?
So I initially went to school. I went to college with the intent to go into video game design.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was always into video games as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
However, I got into music in my senior year of high school. Like, I just got introduced to music and being able to make it affordably, because they had these programs for the computer, which I wasn't knowledgeable about until my senior year in high school. And so I went in to college with the intention of making video games, but that kind of got derailed because I was starting to focus more on making music. And unfortunately, I got kicked out of school because of that, because I was putting more time into making music than actually, my studies and stuff like that. And as a result of getting kicked out of school, I kind of had to make a decision. I was like, well, do I go back to school? Do I reapply, take off a year and reapply, or do I figure out something else? And I was just like, yeah, I'm not about to waste any more money. Clearly, I wasn't interested in doing what it is that I was going to school for. So I was like, I'll do comics. I was like, I don't need any money to go to school for it. I can teach myself. And I had some drawing skills. Like, it wasn't something I had ever really took serious. Like, I had been drawing since I was a kid, but it wasn't something that I took serious. Like, I was drawing every day. So I kind of had to teach myself from scratch a little bit. So I was buying all these anatomy books, learning how to color from YouTube tutorials and stuff like that. And that was my intention. My intention was to get into the comic industry because I figured I didn't have to pay for education. I could teach myself everything it is I needed to. And, from there, everything else just kind of segue itself into all these other venues.
Yeah, and that's the part that I noticed is like maybe you were teaching without teaching. It's like, sharing those books or at least pointing people in the right direction. That's the best place to learn or what to learn and what to do and what not to do. You were sharing a lot of that. I know that I remember uh, pretty distinctly, back then. Um, so if you were, advising a creator, where it's like I said, I liked where you started as far as web comics and stuff like that. But as far as the industry now, because you've been pretty much in the thick of it, where would you suggest a creator, like if you were going to start today, your first book, your first comic, how would you do it? Would you do it the same way?
Definitely. For me, yeah, definitely. I would definitely start the exact same way that I did, just because I think what Truly did for me is it showed my particular creative spin in terms of what it is that I feel like I will offer, to the industry, because there's so many talented artists, who have they come from different backgrounds and what it is that they want to introduce to the game. And I think for me, I want to put a black humorous spin on the fantasy realm. Also something that's driven by music as well. So, I created a brand for myself in terms of my artistry and stuff. And, as a result, that opened so many doors for me, just because, the brands that look for me, the artists that look for me, the projects that are introduced to me, they fall within the realm of the brand that I introduced with Trill League.
Yeah.
I just got through doing a project for Brisk,
Okay.
who does a lot of, independent, they tend to focus a lot more on like, these urban indie artists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they looked at me, the music video that I did with Sir, because, I do a lot of stuff with hip hop artists.
Okay.
So I think definitely, I definitely wouldn't, if I had the chance to start over, man, it would definitely be Trill League, but I definitely would take what it is that I've learned from these 5 years of working on Trill League, you know what I'm saying, and just kind of steer it more in a more focused direction.
Okay. Because another big step that you took that I'm always wondering, because a lot of, like, in the 10 years that you've been working and I've been doing what I've been doing as far as following and advocating for indie creators, a lot of indies are taking that next step into like presenting their work to studios.
Yeah.
As far as pitching their work as a possible either live action film or animated feature and things like that, sort of like broadening their brand, like you were saying. What advice would you give a creator as far as what does a creator need to have in place before they take that next step?
So for me, in terms of this next step that I took in terms of pitching my material, when I first came out to California, I was just, going by the skin of my teeth, like just going up to the studios, pitching my stuff. And I wasn't really knowledgeable about the game. The furthest I got was as a result of me having a manager. Okay. So my manager, he opened some doors for me, and he kind of schooled me onto the game. So I would definitely say you can do it by the skin of your teeth. You can go out here, and knock on these doors. I don't necessarily know how far you'll get. I don't want to say you won't get far, but I'll just say that, I had a couple of opportunities where I didn't have management, and, I got those meetings, but they didn't go anywhere. But once I got that manager, those meetings took place, and, people listened and things happened.
Okay.
Yeah. So if anything, I would say, just because of understanding how Hollywood works, I would say, if possible, try to get yourself either a manager or an agent, someone who can open those doors for you, just because one of the things about production that I've learned is not just let me take it back step. In terms of having an idea, I came out to Hollywood thinking that, you know, I had this golden idea because a lot of people were telling me that I did. And clearly, you know, it was.
Yeah,
However, when it comes to Hollywood, you know, you can have a golden idea, but they want to know, can you produce it? That's really what it is. And they want to know, you know, if we're not going to just buy it from you, because I was in a little bit of a unique position because I was coming from comedy. It was sort of imperative that I wrote it. Whereas if you kind of have an action script or something like that, you can kind of sell a concept. You can create the story, and they'll attach another screenwriter to it. You know, who will, you know, take your story and try to figure out how to, you know, break it up and make it into whether it's a television series or, you know, full feature film, whatever it may be. However, because I was coming in from a comedy slant, they were like, well, this is unique to you, so we have to have your voice on it. Can you write for TV? And that was the biggest thing. No, I hadn't written for. I don't have any television scripts. You know.
Okay.
So that was the one thing my manager taught me. He was like, "Well, you know, we got to get you writing for television. We also have to get, you know, since you're new to the game, we got to attach somebody who can write for TV, you know, along with you." So yeah, so it's. I would say, if anything, you know, if you're a new creative, just kind of try to understand how Hollywood works in terms of selling these projects. Understand if you want to be attached to the project, what it is that you need to produce. So, you know, if anything, like, you know, you might want to have some scripts ready to show that you can write for television or for film. How, you know, yeah, it's a lot to it. It's a lot to it that I could break down. We'd be all day if I wanted to break down that whole little process that I learned. Yeah.
And which brings us, you know, to the point, like you, as far as I know, you still have like Trill League in the works, as far as you were working with, you know, was it 50 Cent and his company and all that kind of stuff. And then I think didn't you write for Black Jesus too?
No, I didn't write for Black Jesus. I haven't written for any television series. I've written. Only thing I've written for. I've written for Liquid J, which was a small little television, which was a small production for Zeus, their little mobile app. But I haven't written for anything for television.
Okay. Yeah. What has been your experience with? Because I saw you're still in comics. You know, you still write it. You're still writing and drawing for comics, and I noticed that I think I just saw you in the last issue of Miles Morales Spider-Man. You know, I think you drew a short story.
Yeah.
And I ain't gonna lie, I was mad. I was like, man, he could have wrote this too. It would have been dope had he got a chance to write it too.
Yeah.
What's it been your? So like there was this moment when I know you remember this when DC came out with that cover for Teen Titans that looked practically damn near like Trill League. It's like they were somebody gave the artist Trill League and said, "Yo, give us this." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I remember that time, like I was excited and scared at the same time. It's like, they see what he's doing. They're about to run with it. And then I was like, oh no, they see what he's doing. They're about to steal it. You know. What was that like for you? You know, when you saw that.
I linked a little bit towards scared too. You know, just because. Well, yes and no. In the sense that I don't necessarily think you can do what it is that I do. The professional, you know, the main publications that are out there, I don't think they can replicate it. I don't think that you can add my spin to those characters. It won't seem authentic. It can't be.
I mean, they can't take if nothing else, they can't take the risks you took. They can't make a pimp Green Lantern. They can't, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's just certain aspects, you know. Not to make it racial, it's just certain things about our culture that you can't add on to white characters and make it seem pretty, you know. You can't do it. You can't do it at all. And even if they did try to make it to, you know, all black, it just still wouldn't seem authentic. You know, it just wouldn't gel with their characters.
Right.
However, you kind of wish that if they are trying to implement certain, stylings from me, you would think that they would try to approach me,
At the
and say,
very least,
hey,
yeah.
yeah, and let me have some sort of direction. But I have had, and I won't go too deep into these conversations, but I have had discussions with some people at DC.
Mm-hmm.
And however, I think that they just want to place me as a artist. They just want me to illustrate. And that's
Okay.
not, that's not the only role that I want to play in terms
No,
of
for sure.
creating it. I think what I've done, I've shown you kind of how to create, kind of how to add a voice, kind of how to market, kind of how to design, all these things.
Yeah.
So I just don't want to be relegated to just being an illustrator, taking orders from somebody else in terms of how, drawing a story and stuff. And and some people might not necessarily like that. I think that's really what the case was, is that people didn't like, me thinking that I was possibly bigger than what they felt I was.
But what's interesting about that is like, so now we're several years removed from that, right? And you would think that they would have caught on and actually ran with it. And what I realized was that all they figured, all they saw was the surface. They really couldn't. They didn't really have they weren't brave enough to really take it in the direction that you would have took it, to trust someone like you to take these characters or take a handful of characters and really create, something that would really connect to a larger audience. They just don't have the ability to do it. It's like, so in a sense, as much as I follow the big two and see the things that they're doing, they do a lot of great stuff, but at the same time, they tend to still find themselves in the safest places. They don't take the risks like someone, like a writer like you would take, or any number of different writers. Like they don't, like for instance, they're not bringing comedians into the space. They're bringing science fiction writers who have had like decades worth of history, or they're bringing somebody in like, I'm a big fan of Walter Mosley, who's about to write a Marvel book. But he's, in his 60s or 70s, I don't know. But you know what I mean? It's like they're still playing it somewhat safe. They're, the youngest person might be a top, Coates, for instance.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, and I think part of it is a lane that I put myself in as well, which is kind of like self-inflicted, in a sense that in order, I think, to push me as a creator for one of the main two, you kind of have to promote what it is that I've done and the background that I've come from, which is explicit, so, and it's not mainstream. It's not mainstream at all what it is that I do. So, they want to kind of, any writer that they bring into the mix, they're kind of like, okay, well, you can kind of see their past and you can see what we're trying to extract and bring to our characters. And if you try to promote what it is that I have created, it's over the top. I'm not necessarily sure if they're brave enough to do that. I don't necessarily know if they even will want to do that and what sort of backlash they will receive from doing that. So I can kind of, from some points, I can kind of understand it. You want to keep these things safe.
I mean, now I can see that, but there was a time at the same time. It's like, you still got people like Frank Cho that are, in the industry. It's like everybody knows that's his background, but you still put him on a traditional superhero book. It's like, if you were, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I get what you're saying. There is some fear of backlash about a particular artist's work, in history. But at the same time, when I really, think about it, even Bruce Timm did cheesecake type art. You know what I mean? So like, not every, I think it's something particular to Black humor.
Exactly.
Black,
that's exactly what it is.
The black woman's anatomy. When you talk about a character like Wandisha, because that's what we're talking about. You know what I mean? And like the characters that you make, if you're talking about, but at the same time, I'm telling you, because we've had this conversation 100 times, it's the conversation that we had back then, it still applies now. That I still believe that somebody like you is going to step into this space and do the Tyler Perry thing. They're going to create a something. They're going to create a brand that not everybody's going to like. That's going to make them uncomfortable, but they're going to connect with millions of folks, and it's going to take off. And then you're going to have to, and then the rest of the industry is going to have to be forced to, play along. So
yeah, and you know what? I mean, for me, I don't necessarily. I like the niche area that I'm in terms of my independent content.
mm-hmm.
You know, I believe that I can do the mainstream thing, and I mean, I have tackled a couple of projects where I don't do my Trill League thing. Mm-hmm. However, what I've always wanted to do was I've always wanted to open this space to people who weren't traditionally into comics and anime.
Right.
And I think there are a lot of people who, everybody knows who Superman was. They know who these characters are, but they have no interest in following their stories or anything of that sort. Because sometimes some of these things, some of these stories can be a bit silly, in certain people's eyes and stuff like that. We love it, but the average person, they might not necessarily care for it, but they like the humorous stuff. So, and part of my goal has always been to expand from a business standpoint, has always been to expand the opportunities for Black artists and get more eyes onto this thing it is that we do. Because I feel like right now a lot of Black artists don't get those economic opportunities to create and to be able to thrive on their art. And especially creating the things it is that they want to create. Not having to draw, white Superman, white Batman. They want to draw their content, things authentically with their voice. And I feel like in order to do that, we have to bring more of us into this field that are willing to spend money. So I feel like, it's like, all right, open that gate so we can pull more people into this space. And I think Trill League is one of the projects that is doing that. Bringing people into that space because they're like, oh, I like hip hop, I like comedy, blah blah blah. I don't need to know all this, years and years of backstory in order to get into this. I can just digest it, right? All right, cool. Right. If you like that product, oh, okay. Well, let me look. I never knew something like this existed. Let me see what else is out here. So we want to draw more people into this thing it is that we do, man. So a lot more of us can do what it is that we do and make a living from it without having to create, for these white publishers, white production, studios and stuff of that sort.
No, I'm totally with you. I want to reset the room real quick. Stay professional here. I'd like to welcome everybody again to the Black Comics Universe presented by Peep Game Comics, exclusively here on The Experience. Please help us out by hitting share on this video. Share this video, give us a like, and then more tune in for more programming 7 days a week. And the Black Comics Universe streams on all DSPs every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm with Anthony Piper, the creator of Trill League. And Kyle, you can show that image of the Trill League characters that everybody's so fond of and familiar with. There you go. We got Sparrow. And that's the name you had to come up with after you, even though Trill Robin was the name everybody remembered.
Before I realized Trill League was a thing, his name was Trill Robin. So
yeah. So that's Sparrow in the front there. And then you got Black Mane. You got Swole Mane. You got Wandisha.
Yes.
And Tam. That's right. He's the Shazam character. Yep. I really, what's so crazy. I was selling copies of Trill League and I sold out of them, and now they're no longer in publication, and I didn't keep one. Now I'm kicking myself. But I can definitely see it's like because I've been going back to actually collecting comics, and your book, I know if and when your animation comes, the cartoon comes back into production and starts, rolling again, I could definitely see that actually making that book, actually showing up on eBay again. I can't find it yet, but I'm looking. I'm on the hunt for a copy.
Yeah, I plan on doing a reprint, man. I got one copy left myself that I got to send off.
Man,
but even then, I don't even have any copies. I got a hard copy left. They all sold out, but I do plan on.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I promise you, I'm mad at myself. I'm trying to hunt somebody down before.
I'm a reprint, man. I've had too many inquiries, and I only printed a small amount. I printed 2,500 copies of that book.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean they sold out. So I'm definitely, once I get the second one, I've had a lot of people hit me up in the inbox like, yo, do you have any more physical copies? I'm like, all I got is digital right now. They like, yeah, we want the physical. So I said, once I get the second book done and I send that into the print, I'll be sending in the first issue for print as well.
So are you working on another trilogy book now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So what can people expect with the new one?
What can they expect with the new one? I'm definitely taking it in a direction that if you read the end of the first book, you can see I was going more into, a conversation about Black economics, a lot of different stuff. And I'm definitely taking it to a different level. The things that I want to speak about, I'm taking off a little bit of the filter in terms of like the topics that I want to introduce and the jokes. So yeah, so it's definitely going to be, it's going to take people by surprise, I think, in terms of like the depth of the story and the depth of the message it is that I can imbue into Trill League. It's not just comedy. It's also some social conversation in terms of things that's, topical stuff that we're speaking about in the Black community.
We got some actually comments here. JD Smith asks, what is Piper's focus, especially in the arts, i.e. character design, entertainment, concept art, video game, 3D modeling, etc.?
What is my focus? I would say my primary focus, I mean, most people thought it was character design, and that's primarily what I've done in the animation industry. In terms of comics, I've done sequential illustration and writing. I would just say my primary focus is just being a creative overall. I wear a lot of different hats. Whether it be character design, whether it be illustration, in terms of my thing that it is that I do, I wear every hat, whether it's, whether it's the writing, the illustration, the coloring, the marketing of it, the lettering, the graphic design, and all that. So, I just think my primary focus is just being entrepreneur in the art space.
Yeah, and then my friend Marcus Roberts was asking for a second printing. Yes, hopefully we get a second printing of Trill League for sure.
Yeah, it's coming next year. I say probably late spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that first printing could be worth something now if you got a copy.
It could be, and now that you say that, I might have to change up the cover. I might have to change up the cover just because of that.
Yeah, I would do it. I would do that because seeing, commercials and stuff again, they might be shocked at how valuable that book is. Because I think if it hits the way I think it will, that's going to be a very valuable indie book for sure.
Yeah, and I kind of want to make it unique, for the people who supported me, man, because I'm very appreciative for the people who supported me from the beginning of this thing, even before then, and so I just, in any way, shape, or form it is that I can give back to those people who were there since the beginning of this thing, since the inception of it, man, I do what I can. So I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna try to figure that out, man, and I might do something to kind of make that first book, that first print, more unique.
No, yeah, for sure. And also I've been thinking a lot about the type of comics that you were putting out. Yeah, and my friend Marcus was definitely saying, yeah, once that animated feature hits, it's gonna be through the roof for sure. The type of work that you've been putting out, as far as like, because like the book is not it is adult content, but it doesn't seem like it's like overly vulgar. I mean, it's like the humor is like,
Yeah.
it's like it's safe enough, but at the same time, I've always thought that um there's still a ton of money on the table as far as other creators entering into this space, creating content or comics for adults.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like especially with the way you like for instance, like the way you designed One Disha, for instance, right? Um, and I remember there was a ton of controversy, and we could talk about your relationship with social media and all that kind of stuff because um, everybody has mixed feelings about her character and like the
Yeah.
direction you were going in, but at the same time, I knew for a fact that there's a lot of money to be made in that space as far as creating adult mature humor or content.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was even, and Kyle can tell you, I was pitching to the guy who runs. I was pitching to who was I pitching to? Oh, Rodney Barnes. He
Okay.
was who's writing. He was about to put out Blackula, and I was saying to him, I said, man, it would be really dope if there needs to be like a black Vampirella type character, like you know, the same vibe that Vampirella has, but basically Meg the Stallion, based. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and but I was like, but that comes from what you were doing. Like I know there's an audience for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like and package it. Probably be humorous or whatever the case might be.
Mm.
But I know there's, I know that there's a lot of artists out there too that are doing work that is the traditional work that wish they could do more adult type content too. But but it's weird. Like when they want to do black creative content, they have to play it safe or politically correct. They're doing the things that safe for work type stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so what do you think about that? As far as do you plan on like telling more stories or more different comics and different stories? Not just with Trill League, but introducing like other characters and other stories too in
Yeah.
this adult space.
Yeah. I got some other stories, some other IPs. I got another IP that I'm getting headstrong on that I wouldn't illustrate, but I would write.
Okay.
And it's in the same realm. I mean, I think it's more adult content. It's not necessarily vulgar or sexually explicit,
Mm-hmm.
but just in terms of like adult topics, the language and stuff like that is still in that space. Uh, I agree with you completely. I think that there is a space for more adult black content out there. When you think about it, a lot of us who grew up in that era where these cartoons and comics started to take off, uh, we're adults now, man, and we spending money.
Mm-hmm.
And we spending money on video games, comics, movies. So this is the stuff that we like.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, it's a market for it. However, I do think that there are some people who still feel as if they attach that this medium to their childhood and think that it shouldn't enter into that space. And I'm just kind of like, yo, we grew up with that stuff, but now we're adults. So why
Mm-hmm.
can't we add that spin to it? Why
Right.
can't we add this sort of subject matter to it, man? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a lot of battles to be fought in terms of the black creative space and what they think should represent us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been like, what I've realized is that sometimes, like when I'm online, I get the feeling that the whole community is there. That like everybody, like all the black folks that are into comics, that are buying comics, um, they're represented in this space. And the reality is, when I step outside, the reality is it's like the vast majority of the world doesn't know about any of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? They haven't picked up a book. They don't know these characters. And like when I share this stuff online, everybody, runs to it because everybody seems to know. But there's still millions and millions and millions and millions of people that haven't gotten it yet. And so as even when I see like big news about, Milestone and big publishers are putting out books and, doing these things. I'm still amazed at the fact that they still haven't broken through. They still haven't. Still feel the black audience is the X factor here. And once they come to this space, it's going to be a whole new ball game. And they still haven't quite figured out the formula yet. They're doing some, great work and giving some great opportunities, but I'm still surprised at how easily you made a connection with your book, with your work, and they're still trying to figure it out. Like, the fact that, I tell the story all the time that, my son, who doesn't read a lot of comics, he came to me and said, "Oh yeah, Dad, you hear about this Trill Robin guy? Have you seen this before?" And I was like, "Yo," I was like, I talked to the guy, and once I knew that it broke that barrier, I knew that, okay, yeah, he has something different. It's like he's not asking me about, because it's like, no. So once I realized that it crossed that chasm that of communication, that I knew that you were onto something. And like I've noticed that even with as popular as Milestone and a lot of larger publishers, as much money and support that they have, they've yet to really make those connections. So I'm really excited about what you have.
And that's the conversation. And going back to what I was saying previously, that was the conversation that I wanted to have with them. In terms of how it is that you can make Milestone popular.
Yeah. Okay.
And speak to a new generation.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You just got some people who I don't know. I think to me, and I think once the movies start to come out, and I think once these media projects we get the movies and the TV shows and stuff like that, it'll start redirecting attention back to the comics. However, I just think that we're recycling the same formula over and over and over again, and we just putting a blackface to it. And I think that there's something, and we can go in so many different directions creatively that would get people hyped about comics, get hyped about the creation of comics and what it is that we can say with these stories and stuff like that, and have a conversation about these topics that we want to imbue into, our fantasy stories. But you just got some people who they see it the traditional way, and the people who run Milestone, I don't know. They just, to me, I just don't think that they have that outlet or even the curiosity to even try to explore what else it could have been.
Yeah.
So, I'm hopeful, man. I'm hoping, you seeing a lot of these young kids, these young indie artists out here putting their spin on stuff, man. So, maybe it might hit the mainstream eventually one day. I'm somewhat hopeful, but I don't know, We'll see. We'll see. But I'm in the same ballpark as you, man. I was kind of hoping, I'm like, yo, this is our opportunity. We got a mainstream black publisher, trying to reintroduce these characters, and we can do so many more different things with them, to really build this up and show what black creatives can do. And they didn't want it, and they weren't interested in hearing that conversation. So yeah.
Was it like, so you had a whole plan laid out, or like
no, I didn't have a plan laid out, but I would have at least liked to have had those discussions.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have had those discussions. You saw what it is that I did by myself.
Right.
One creative by himself.
Right.
So it's like, just imagine if I had we were in a room of people, in terms of marketers and executives and writers, and, graphics, all that stuff, in terms of just having those discussions and seeing where it is that we could expand and take comics, especially it being niche. I think it's easier to take something that doesn't have a huge audience already and try to do something massively different, as opposed to something that's already kind of, has all these eyeballs on it, and taking it in a different direction, having an entire fan base kind of be like, yo, you know, and they had so many different books. I mean, you could have did it with just one book, or you know, just did it with hardware, did it with static, whatever, you know. But,
and not to take away from anything that they're doing, because I do see that they're sort of listening. Because, like, for instance, Static, it started off with Kyle Baker, who started it with that book, and he pulled back, and then they went with Nicholas Ivey and Vita, as far as so like they changed it up, changed up the storyline. You could tell that they were listening, and okay, we want to stay connected to what's happening, especially with the whole Black Lives Movement. Last year. But at the same time, I think what we're talking about is goes a little bit further than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a hip hop spin to it. I really think that it could have been a lot, and this isn't me trying to take away from anything. I just think Static was prime to set up to be a lot more cooler and a lot more with the Black art movement.
Cooler. It should have been. It's like it could have been funnier, cooler,
edgier.
Even
edgier.
What I said, but that goes back to this idea of being afraid to really stick your neck out there and do the things that are going to bring those people in. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
for instance,
I was gonna say, I think mostly it's not even that. I think they had a unique vision for it. It's just you need an artist, I think, or creative with that sort of spin who even thinks like that. And I don't think that's very few and far in between right now in terms of creatively thinking on that aspect. And that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted was just to even have that conversation and say, hey, maybe we should try to add this to this character. You know what I'm saying? Just having these ideas.
Right. No, for sure. Because, like, for instance, I was playing around with this idea, like like the Punisher has been getting a lot of bad, a bad rep because Blue Lives Matter protesters were taking the logo and using it for T-shirts and all this kind of stuff, the Punisher and stuff like that. So they were talking about just canceling the Punisher altogether, right? And I was like, what would be dope is, what if you made Luke Cage the Punisher, right? And I was like, and I even pitched it to David Walker. I was like, yo, and he said, like, actually, I think he said he might have pitched something like that to them or something to that nature. And the only problem is to make it work, Luke Cage got to be able to punch his fist through somebody's face. Like, he got to really get bloody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's like, he can't be the sweet Christmas guy anymore. He has to be a real dude out there putting in work. And if you're not willing to go that far with that character, you know what I'm saying, that's not going to work. Or like the fact that even in the book, you notice, like, in the show, Black women loved Luke Cage. Loved that show. Because of the whole thing with the coffee, and he was basically smashing everybody, right? On the show, on the TV. But you can't, but like Marvel wasn't willing to, if you're not willing to go that far in the book, then it's like the book is not going to do as well as the show. It's not going to carry over.
Yeah.
And I think those are the type of connections that's what we're talking about. It's like those are the things, the little things that I think that are missing in some of these storylines. It's like the things that work on Netflix and stuff like that with some of these storylines, they can work in comics. You know what I'm saying? And if you get it to work in comics, those audience, will gravitate to that book because it's an extension of what those stories that they saw on TV, on the streaming platforms. But if you're going to give me the Disney version in the comics, and then, you know what I'm saying? And then
and I think that's a lot of the problem too. I wish Marvel would kind of take the DC route and kind of have these kind of one-offs, that aren't attached to the main storyline.
Like the Black Label type stuff. Yeah,
because DC does that very well. Where they have these stories that aren't tied to the main continuity, where they can explore these different versions of these characters and these alternate timelines. And I think that would be right for Marvel to do, to explore those darker storylines and stuff. But, I don't necessarily know if they are willing, just because now they're owned by Disney. And if Disney, let's step back from that. Or, I think you just will alienate, the main audience who reads those books, at the expense of bringing in other people, so.
And then, of course, my friend Marcus said, like, distribution is key, and it's right. And it's not just when I think of distribution, it's not just about the distribution in the traditional comic book shops. It's about distribution in places where Black folks are, like distribution in Walmart's, Family Dollars.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a fashionable comic where you can put it in a shoe store, where you can put it in a clothing store, and it wouldn't be, and it would fit along with the whole vibe of the store, because everything it is, that you putting in the book is oriented toward the things it is that, Black people tend to spend their money on. Man, I had a whole bunch of plans, man, but it's cool.
No.
I'll save them for myself. We'll see.
That's what's up. Just keep me in the loop, man. We got like I think we got about we got 6 more minutes here. Like we said, you can still find a digital copy of Trill League on Peep Game Comics. You can find it on your website too, right?
Yes, sir. TrillLeague.com.
TrillLeague.com. Where else can they find you on social media?
Social media, man, you can pretty much just look me up, Anthony Piper. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on IG. In terms of Twitter and IG, it's just Ant_Piper. My website is anthonypiper.com, where you can see my work that I've done on different productions, different comics, stuff like that, some of my sketch work and stuff. So yeah, you can just Google me, man, and pretty much find all my my websites and links.
All right, cool. We got about 6 minutes left. Any parting words you'd like to leave us with?
Oh no, man, ain't really no parting words, man, except kind of except be on the lookout next year for this second book. I'm definitely finna start going heavy with the promotion of it in about 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, now I appreciate you coming back on Facebook.
Yeah, man, I figured enough time had passed, so I figured all that conversation had died down. And I figured I was safe to come back on,
Well, we're gonna see with this. We'll see how safe it is.
Yeah, we'll see, especially once I drop these first set of pages. We're gonna see how they take them, because
you'll be all right. You'll be all right. What's interesting is, like, maybe I'll leave you with this. It's like I was talking to this cat. He's into trap art, and he does trap art shows. And if you're not familiar with trap art, just for the listeners, trap art is basically, it's like these self-taught artists that are they sell their artwork, they sell paintings and drawings and stuff like that, and they do this is like the shows that they do, and they're not gallery shows. They're at strip clubs and all this kind of stuff, and it's like they do a body painting, but it's really popular. It's like hundreds of thousands of people are into it. He was like, "Hey, I want to get into comics. I want to go to a show and do a Comic Con and all that kind of stuff." I said, "Man, you got your get your book, and I promise you get your book and you sell it at this show, man. You don't necessarily need to chase this audience over here. If you got an audience where you're at, and I think that's the main thing we're talking about. If you got an audience where you're at, cultivate that audience, man. Don't go chasing something that's might not be for you."
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to be the thing that really grows this audience, in comic book space, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's why I'm excited where Trill League can go, because I think I'm gonna have to look into them trap shows, just because I think Trill League,
it's perfect for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like it's the exact it's like if you'll find it. You literally put trap arts on Instagram, and you'll find it. Like they do shows all across the country and all this kind of stuff. It's really popular. But I've always thought, like, you put a book into that space, a comic book or comic book characters in that space.
Yeah,
it'll have a life of its own, man, for sure.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. I appreciate your time, Anthony. Thank you for listening in to the Black Comics Universe presented by Peep Game Comics, exclusively here on The Experience. Again, please share and like this video and stay tuned for programming 7 days a week. We stream every Tuesday at 6 p.m. on all DSPs. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Black Comics Universe. God bless you and good night.
All right, good night.